I had to make one of the hardest calls I've ever had to make. I'm in a bad spot to where I don't have any more money to finish it. And I was just like, we at this point got to cut our losses. And it was one of the hardest calls I had to make. I'm like, I can't pay you back right now, but we need to, I just knew at the time, like, we need to sell this house and stop the bleeding and regroup and sort of reset. And that was still to this day one of the hardest calls ever, guys. I'm telling you, like, and he was not happy. And even just, if I could show you guys the emails and what it was like having to not be able to pay that guy back at the time, it was super hard. But I'm like, hey, I can't do it now, but I'm not giving up. Let me reset, let me get back on my feet. And at some point, I want to pay you back. Exactly a year ago, I was able to buy my dream home for my family using seller finance, right? This would have never been, I would have been waiting a while, especially now that I left my W-2 and I'm less bankable and I'm an entrepreneur. Like, this would have took a lot more time, right? But I was able to do it through creative finance. But I want to show you guys the story of like how I got there from like the kind of first couple houses that we kind of fixed up and flipped all the way along to this sort of last one, right? Kind of till of 3 houses, okay? 5 years ago, where I was at, and I want to share this story so a lot of you guys will resonate and be like, I would never picture that. I couldn't do that, right? It's happened. I was in a lot of maybe your shoes 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, and I've got a really cool video I'll share with you guys on YouTube where I actually, when I was at Squad Up, I took my team over to this house, and this was like kind of like rock bottom for me. It's a house in Dallas, Fort Worth that we were fixing and flipping. And we had and I'll save you the long story. You guys can go watch it on my YouTube channel. But in that period in my life, again, this was more like actually like 6-7 years ago. We were fixing and flipping, and we were using private money with hard money, but we ran into a tough batch of contractors, tough seasonality, like to where houses weren't moving. It was a lot of combinations of a lot of different things, okay? But ultimately, we got to the point where I had to make one of the hardest calls I've ever had to make. I'll never forget this phone call. And I had to call my hard money or my private money lender and be like, hey, I've got to get this house sold. I put the money in already that you invested, and we're not done, and I'm in a bad spot to where I don't have any more money to finish it. And I was just like, we at this point got to cut our losses. And it was one of the hardest calls I had to make. I'm like, I can't pay you back right now, but I just knew at the time, like, we need to sell this house and stop the bleeding and regroup and sort of reset. And that was still to this day one of the hardest calls ever, guys. I'm telling you, like, and he was not happy. And even just, if I could show you guys the emails and what it was like having to not be able to pay that guy back at the time, it was super hard. But I'm like, hey, I can't do it now, but I'm not giving up. Let me reset. Let me get back on my feet. And at some point, I want to pay you back. Even though like he was secured by the property, we did all the right things, and it just went really sideways. And it was just a really tough spot. But again, I don't want anybody to ever have to make that call. It was one of the worst ones, right? So that was only, I would say, 6-7 years ago. So that was like rock bottom reset. I was actually in Dallas, Fort Worth. I thought I was living in our family's dream home. I thought we were gonna be able to raise our family there. We were living in South Lake, Texas, beautiful schools, beautiful area. And I thought at that point, I was like, I'm ready to leave my W-2. Or at least I thought I was. Like, things were going good. We were fixing and flipping. We had a bunch of houses this kind of happened on where we couldn't sell them. We were using hard money. They were at high price point to where all I could do was literally fire sell them to get them off, because we couldn't afford our hard money payments, right? We had to get these things gone. So really, really tough times. And what I had to do at that time, thank goodness I had a business that I was able to sell and cash out and kind of like get all my hard money lenders paid, like basically just press the reset button. And like I said, I thought I was going to be able to move back. I thought I was going to be able to like leave my W-2, do real estate full time, right? But I wasn't ready. So what I had to do was move back to Houston and go back to I was still working my W-2, but I was in the field. But at that point, I'm like, well, I'm gonna be in this W-2 for a while longer. I'm not ready to do real estate full time. I thought I was, but I'm not. So I went back to my boss at Shell, and I'm like, hey, I need to get back to the office. How do I get back there? I want to still be with my family. I can't be away, because I thought I was going to be away from them for 2 weeks, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, because I worked on a rig, right? I'd be on a drilling rig for 2 weeks and I'd be home. And I was doing that kind of a needs to an end to where I could do that short term and eventually be with my family all the time. But I realized I'm not going to get there. I got to go back to the office. So I moved back to Houston. So when we moved back to Houston, I literally had to rent, right? We sold my house, what I thought was my dream home in South Lake, sold that house, moved back to Houston and just started renting, and just found a house just down the street. And so I got there again, press the reset button. We're living in this small little house with all our little kids and going to work every day, working my W-2 job. But the first thing I did was I was fortunate because I worked for a big corporate company. I got a relocation package and I had really good incentives to go buy my next house. And that was right around, well, here's actually the deal is I couldn't even afford it because I couldn't even buy a new house, but I had 12 months from when I moved to buy my next house. And if I did that, my company would give me like 3% toward the closing costs. So I'm like, I need to do this. And I would get a really good rate and really favorable terms. So I'm like, I don't have enough money to buy my new house right now, but I want to. So I moved back to Houston and lived in that rental. And I was looking, right? And so this house popped up. So this house was right across the street. And this is what it looked like. This one right here. This is exactly what it looked like here on top. It was this kind of hideous mid-century home. The kind of sad part was the lady had actually passed away in the house. She was elderly. This was about before we moved in, actually, across the street. Like literally this house was across the street. I could walk out the window, hit it. I could probably break the front window with a baseball. It was that close. And I'm surprised my kids didn't all the times they were playing catch in the front yard. But that close, I was looking at this house. But anyway, so her relatives, it was actually her sister, they were moving stuff out and we heard what happened. And they were just moving stuff out in front of this house one day. And I walked up to her and I said, hey, can I help you out? Can I help you guys do any moving? And she's like, yeah. And so I helped her move some stuff and she was just trying to get her sister stuff out and they were going to sell the house. And I asked her, I'm like, hey, are you guys planning to keep it or sell it? Or what are you guys planning to do? And she's like, yeah, we want to get it sold. We got to get it cleaned up. But I was basically like, well, hey, when you're ready, I'd love to look at buying it. Eventually, me and my family want to get out of this rental and buy a house. So that's what I did. I kind of planted the seed. And she called me several months later and we literally went in. I'll never forget it. We walked inside of this little house. All right. And we're walking through it and I could see it needs some work. And the funny thing is I offered her, I'm like, and I ran all my math, ran all my numbers. I'm like, I think I could offer you $450,000. And she's like, I can't do that. She's like, no way. The agent is telling me to list it up over 500. He's like, my agent wants me to list it at 525. I can't do that. That's just too low. I'm like, that's okay. I understand. Like, no hard feelings. So this was actually right before COVID hit, right? So she goes and she lists the house for 525. All right. And it sits, right? This is literally like, she listed this thing like a month before we got locked down. I think it was February 2020. And no one could actually go walk or look at houses. Because if you guys remember when COVID first hit, we're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen in the housing market? Before they started slashing interest rates, it was really scary. So this house isn't selling. So I follow back up with her. It's sitting there for like 3 months. And finally, I think I finally called her. I'm like, hey, are you guys still interested in selling this? And she's like, yeah, I really want to. She's like, I'd like to talk again. So we got back on the phone. And anyway, I ended up buying this. I'll write it up here. So house number 1, I ended up going back to her. And guess what? I'll buy it for $433 is what we landed on. $433,000 is what I bought this house for, okay? So then I bought it, but here's the thing. I went and bought it with that awesome loan, right? And rates had just started dropping way down. I got a loan for around $400K at 2.75%. So obviously anybody who refinanced back then are so thankful to have this one. And I still have this loan to this day, okay? So my payment and taxes and everything are super high in Texas, right? As some of you guys know. So my payment on this house right now is, I think it's around like $3,200. That's my taxes, insurance, and everything, okay? So I bought it, but we fixed it up. The first thing I did before I rented it out was, you can see the renovation we did, right? I found a crew. We gave it a complete facelift. It was one of my favorite projects, honestly. One of my favorite transformations, as you guys could see. So we got it, we fixed it all up, and then we moved in, right? So we moved, but we kept the rental because all while this was happening, I was getting to know house number 2. So I was living and renting this house right here. All right. We were renting it for like $33,000 a month. And I got to know my landlord. His name was Tony. And I'm like, Tony, after about a year or so renting there, I'm like, Tony, would you ever consider selling this house? He's like, actually, I've thought about selling it several times, but the market wasn't right. He's like, I would love to sell it. And I got to know him. And literally the guy, he invited me and my wife to his house. We went there, we had coffee. They were like an Iranian couple. Got to know them, and we're like, we would love to buy your house. And they're like, we would love nothing more than a young family to buy this house, right? So again, I'm kind of putting in the work, getting to know these people. So anyway, I ended up getting this house shortly after under contract, all right? So I got this one under contract. So house number 2, we'll do number 2 over here. I got this one under contract for $550,000. Let me scoot this over a little bit so you guys can really see it. House number 2 under contract for $550,000, okay? And he actually only made me put 50K down. So he was financing me 500K, and he did interest only at like 4%. So 500K was my loan, and my payment every month to him was like $1666. I'll never forget it, per month. All right. So it actually dropped my payment, and I got a seller finance terms with him. I had like a 3-year balloon on this house. Okay. So anyway, as the story goes, I ended up moving into this house. But when we moved in here, my wife loved it. But you know what she loved more? Once we moved into this house, she loved this house, just the layout of it. And she had this big vision, especially after we did this one. She's like, oh my God, we could do the same thing on the second house. So that's what we did. We actually moved into the other one. And when we moved out, we went and did this renovation. It turned out incredible. As you guys can just see from, this is just the outside. The inside was complete transformation, right? So anyway, so we moved back into this house. So now I go to, I went to Rocket Mortgage a couple years ago, and it was several years ago, and I went and refinanced this one. But I did it before, it was right when rates were starting to go up. So I ended up locking this one up at like I think it's like 4.95%. So a little higher rate, fixed for 30 years. So my payment on that house right now is about $4,100, I think, on this one, okay? So I bought that one. But now let's talk about keeping them. So talk about the cash flow. All right, so go back to this one. As soon as I moved out, I rented this one. This is house number 1. What do you guys think I rented this house for? What's your guys' guess? How much do you think this house, I'll give you a hint, it's furnished, right? So when I first rented it as a long-term, I'll tell you this. When I first rented it as a long-term, I was getting about $3,500 a month actually as a long-term. But when I furnished it, guess how much I started getting once we furnished this thing? And it's been full to this day. Somebody's right in there right now paying this amount. $6,500 is what we're currently getting. I've actually had months where we've gotten insurance claims and I've gotten $9,000 a month. It is crazy, right? So if you guys see the cash flow there, my payment here, I pay utilities, so that's about $3,300. But let's say my utilities are another $300, so it's about almost $3K a month, and that is my cash flow. Can you guys see this? So guys, yep, as I'm writing down here, so bought the second house, so you can see this was my PITI. So PITI 3,200. This is my rent. $6,500. So my cash flow about $3,000 a month, okay? And I'm telling you, I've thought so many times about selling this house, but because guess what? Now my loan amount is, I've paid it down not that much. I maybe owe $375, but guess what this house is worth right now? I bought this in 2020. It's in a great neighborhood and it has just gone nuts. And hardly any, like this is one of the best school districts and you can't find a house in this district higher. It'll blow you guys' mind what this thing's worth now. It's right around 900 to $1 million right now on that house, okay? So a bunch of equity in there. I thought about cashing it in many times, but you know what I did? If you guys have been in on my other Zooms, or if you go to my YouTube channel, I actually got a private money lender to give me a line of credit on this because I've got like 600K, 500 to 600K of equity and it cash flows crazy. So what I did is I went and got a $200,000 line of credit from a private money lender at 12%. And now I got 200K to go invest, right? Versus selling it, and I kept the asset, okay? But believe me, I've thought about selling that one many times, all right? But I'm glad because it's in a great market and I'm able to tap into that equity, okay? So now let's go back to house number 2 in my dream home, okay? So we had our 4th kid a couple years ago. He's now 2.5. And that little tiny house, that little 4-bedroom house was not big enough. And we were like, we gotta have something bigger. We were going crazy. My wife is going nuts with the kids all day. I'm working from home. And one of those 4 bedrooms is my office. So 3-bedroom house, 6 humans running around, not working out well. So we're like, we gotta buy our dream home, okay? So most of you guys might think that to go buy that dream home, all right, let's go cash these out. So now let's think about number 2 though. I didn't mention that. So this house, I'll tell you what I rented it for so you guys see the cash flow and see how we did it. So this house, the second house number 2, I have a tenant in there right now. I furnished it. I actually left all my furniture in there, which is kind of part of the future story. I'm getting ahead of myself, but they're paying $7,500 a month, right? So I'm making about, and they pay all utilities. So I'm making about $2,400 a month roughly. Again, these are ballpark numbers, okay? So $2,400 a month in cash flow on that house, okay? So, and this house, same general area, about same style house. This one's probably worth 1 to 1.1 million, okay? So total value is we'll just call it 1.1 million, all right? So to go buy my dream home, most people would say, and initially I was thinking this, I'm gonna have to sell these. I'm gonna have to pull out my $500,000 of equity here, pull out my other $500,000 here, come up with $1 million to go buy my dream home to try to go qualify for a loan. Especially now that I don't have credit because I have a good credit score, but I don't have a W-2, right? So most lends won't lend to me. How many guys out there right now are maybe struggling with that? They're like, hey, I can't go get a loan because you either have 1099 income or you have unpredictable income and you can't do it. You have good finances, doing all the right things, but you can't go get the loan for the house you want, right? So now, guys, this is where I kept thinking creative finance, right? I've been in sub 2 a couple years now, and naturally, what do I want? How am I going to go solve my problem of buying my dream home when I can't get qualified with a bank? What do you think I did? You know what? I tried sub 2 and I was striking out several times. I was like, one deal, check this out. This guy had this other house just down the street in the same neighborhood. He had a $1.6 million loan at Chase, and he had like a 2.1% rate. And I was like, and he knew it. He was trying to upsell his house for us. So I'm like, hey, I'll pay you the difference. I'll sell these house, come up with $1 million of cash, and then I'll take over your 1.6. And I was trying to structure and do that deal. And I met with this guy, had coffee with him, doing the same things, guys, the same things I did on these other houses, right? Getting to know the people, understanding the situation. Anyway, got to talking to him. He's like, you know what happened is our market was going crazy. There was no houses in his neighborhood, and he got a cash offer for more than I was offering with his creative. So obviously, he's not going to go through the sub 2 stuff and deal with me, okay? So I tried that on a couple more houses, trying to do sub 2 until this house we're in today pops up. So the craziest thing, I was actually at one of my multifamily properties in Wyoming, and this agent, because I was striking out on all these properties, trying to pitch sub 2, like, hey, let me take over your mortgage because you guys got mortgages when they were super low. That's super valuable. Let me take it over. I'll give you the cash difference. I was offering them huge down payments. Like the one guy, I was like, I'll come up with $1 million of cash just to take over that loan because I wanted to get into my dream home. But it's not working. I'm striking out. So what happened is this agent who I just lost a house on, she sends me a text. She goes, Casey, this house just popped up. Not sure if you're interested. So I immediately look it up and I see the listing agent, and I won't tell you guys, it's a longer story but it was I'll tell you the 30-second version. The listing agent was Rhonda. Okay. So Rhonda, rewind the tape, go back to these 2 houses. There was a third house that I tried to buy around 2022 because it was sitting. They couldn't move it, and they wanted to tear it down. I'm like, don't tear it down. Let me go renovate it and do exactly what I did on those other houses. I actually pitched her. It was it was the first revive method I think I've ever pitched, because I'm like, hey, why don't you let me go in? I'll do the rehab and we'll profit share on the back end, right? I literally brought this husband and wife into my office, walked them through a PowerPoint, showed them all the numbers, and got to know them. But you know what? They didn't want to do it because they wanted to tear it down, and her brother-in-law was a builder, and they're like, we're going to tear it down. It's okay. We don't want to do it. But guess what? But I got to know them. So then when our dream home pops up, the listing agent is, guess who? It's Rhonda, the lady that I had in my office, the one I met that I tried to buy her last house. And I'm like, Rhonda, and I knew these people pretty well. I'm like, Rhonda, do you guys happen to own that house free and clear, if you don't mind me asking? It was one of my normal sales calls, right? I'm like, all right, this is a sales call to make my dreams come true. And I'm like, Rhonda, is it free and clear? She goes, yeah, Casey, it is. And I'm like, do you think your husband, JT, and you would be open to seller finance if I could come up with a down payment? And guess what she says? She says, Casey, JT, my husband, that's exactly what we want to do. We don't want to sell this house outright for cash, because if we do, we're going to have a big tax liability. Like, we want to seller finance. It's free and clear. We would rather be the bank. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a miracle. This is what we wanted, right? And I'm like, this is too good to be true. I'm like, and I kept thinking and I was thinking through all the stops, how do I make sure we do this? So anyway, we got back home. I went and walked the house with my wife. We looked at it and we started talking terms. And anyway, we structured the deal. We ended up we still put 20% down, but they financed us it's a higher rate. I'm paying 6.75%, but here, check this out. So I actually asked them, they're like, we know you do a lot of fixing and flipping and you're a real estate investor, Casey. We don't actually want you to refinance when rates come back down. When you decide to refinance this, when rates come down, we want first right of refuser to take the refinance. So essentially I'm locked up for 3 years. And then at that point I can go and sort of renegotiate my rate again, and I'm sure they'll keep it. But I was able to buy the dream home. But guess what, guys? That's why I wanted to highlight this is, guess what I did not have to do? I didn't have to sell these, right? I didn't have to go through a bank that was going to be like, your DTI is way too high and all this. You guys know what that's like, okay? I was able to keep both houses, keep the cash flow, because a lot of the cash flow from this house, this helps funds my mortgage payment every month, which is really cool. So I wanted to share that story with you guys of it's actually really like near and dear to me right now because it was exactly a year ago we moved into this house and did it. And I've told people bits and pieces at like the No One Left Behind challenge and just on Zooms or other in networking events. I've told people kind of the story, but I've never like broke it down of how we did it and how we bought 3 houses. So now look at this together. I just posted this on my Instagram story. Now, because we structured this creatively and didn't go through the bank, because I'm telling you guys, the majority of everyone else you probably know and everyone else even in my neighborhood, they've maybe done the same thing and traded up and bought in bigger houses and been able to ride up this appreciation in these markets that have gone up. But the way they did it was they sold house 1 to buy house 2, sold house 2 to buy house 3. And they're all gone, right? And they've got a nice house now, but they don't still have those assets. Now I have like 3 houses and the rough value on it, like the appraised value is around 4.5 million, right? And I have really good debt on them. And now imagine the appreciation. If I get 5% or even 3% a year on 4.5 million, like that's a huge, huge growth. So I wanted to share that story with you guys. Really exciting one. Do you guys see the point? It's like, I wanted to prove a point of like me going and meeting sellers, right? Going and like being personable, right? I do most all of my stuff virtual, but anytime I can go meet somebody face to face, like every one of these sellers, I knew personally. I got to know them. They got to know what I was all about. And that went so far when it came to negotiating. Like every one of these people liked me and they liked my wife and they liked our vision, right? And that accounts for a lot of stuff, especially when you're trying to get terms and put together a deal that's going to work for you. All right. So I wanted to prove that point that like go out and talk, meet people, create value, right? And the second one is not being afraid to go ask for seller finance terms, right? Some of you guys maybe haven't even thought of the fact that I'm learning all these skills. I could actually go buy my next house for my family. Hopefully it inspires some of you guys to do it.